the issue of illegal migration is tearing our country apart.
Nigel Farage has tonight said that he thinks you're auditioning to join Reform.
Nigel Farage can keep his opinions to himself. He can frankly sod off.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Talking Politics. I'm Robert Peston. I've just had a very lively conversation with the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood about her changes to the approach to asylum seekers, which she bills as the most important reforms in this territory of who is granted leave to remain here, the criteria for deciding whether they can stay. She says these are the most important reforms since the Second World War, and she also makes this really rather extraordinary claim that if these reforms don't go through, the country will be torn apart. And, you know, although they are not as, I don't know whether the correct word is radical, but, you know, they are certainly not as much of a change as Reform and Farage want or the Tory party want. They are certainly, for a Labour government, very significant indeed, including this big change that if you are claiming asylum, and it doesn't really matter what the basis for that is, you know, you may have come from a war-torn country, you will not have the right to even ask for settled status for 20 years. And every 30 months, you will be your case will be reviewed. And if it's felt that the country you came from is safe, you will be told you have to leave, and you've got to leave with your children too. And there's a big issue about whether or not families with children would be detained, effectively locked up during that period. So very controversial changes being proposed by the Home Secretary. And this, therefore, is why I've spoken to her tonight, and this is what she had to say. When you joined the Labour Party, did you ever think that you'd be making the case for detaining families, expelling them and their children, even after they fled war zones? What's going on?
Well, when I joined the Labour Party, I did so as a child of immigrants myself. The story of migration is woven into my personal story as well as that of my family, and actually thousands of my constituents who all have migrant backgrounds. The place I represent is more than 70% non-white. So I have a high regard for the contribution and the value of legal migration into our country. But I know that the issue of illegal migration is tearing our country apart. I was elected on a manifesto where we, the Labour Party, promised this country that we would deliver secure borders. And what I'm doing today is fulfilling that commitment and coming forward with much needed and necessary reforms to our asylum system so that we can retain public consent overall for having an asylum system at all. That really matters to me. I'm not willing to put that at risk, and I'm not willing to let a broken system create more division in our country. That, to me, is Labour values in action with a new system underpinned by fairness and contribution.
But it is still completely consistent with your policies that parents and children may have escaped extreme danger, may have made their lives here, and yet under your system of reviewing every 30 months whether or not they're safe to return home, you may put them in a position where they are going to be expelled.
Well, I think it's right that we regularly review whether the country of origin for people who've got refugee status in this country is in fact still dangerous for them to return to, and if it has become safe in the intervening time.
Well, what if they don't want to go and their lives are hit?
Just let me finish. I think it's right that we're able to return people once a country becomes safe. We will be encouraging people who receive the new core protection offer for refugee status to switch into a work and study route so they can start working and contributing to this country. That route will lead to an earlier settlement than would otherwise be the case. But I make no apology actually for offering safe and legal routes which which is where we want to get to as a government, that will privilege those people to an even earlier settlement in this country, because I want to disincentivize people from getting on dangerous boats and coming across a very dangerous channel crossing, paying thousands of pounds while they do so to criminals. I don't want them to do that. I'd rather people came through safe and legal routes instead, and I make no apology for incentivizing a safe and legal route and disincentivizing illegal migration into this country.
We're living in an appallingly unstable world. We see conflict everywhere. You are pledging to put in place safe and legal routes. We currently receive, on average, about 100,000 asylum seekers a year. How many will you let in via these safe and legal routes?
Well, look, as we get order and control into our current system, as we sort this mess out, we will be introducing safe and legal routes. They will start modest to begin with.
What's modest me? Give me a
few hundred to begin with, but they will grow over time. So this is the vision that I have for the system that we want to run, with multiple safe legal routes, community sponsorship being the preferred model, but also routes for skilled refugees and also for talented student refugees as well. So 3 specific routes that we will work with community organisations and philanthropists and the UN Refugee Agency and others on developing and building. They will grow more generous over time, because I know...
You are basically putting up the drawbridge, aren't you? We have a proud history of accepting vulnerable people.
We should do so through safe and legal routes and not...
But a few hundred is nothing.
It will grow over time, and it will become much more generous over time as well, because I know that once we've restored order and control, we can unlock the true extent, the generosity of the British people. That is what I want to do. I want to privilege those who come to this country through a safe and legal route with an earlier and an easier path to settlement as they do so. And I want to disincentivize people paying people smugglers and organised immigration criminals a ton of money to get on a boat in the Channel instead.
You talked about in Parliament the racist abuse that you have suffered all your life. You used that very upsetting phrase, which I'm not going to repeat here. Why do you think that these proposals will reduce that kind of racist abuse?
Look, there are some people who will never accept someone who looks like me and others as true Brits who have a right to be in this country. I'm not interested in talking to those people. Their views are beyond the pale. But I do see a much bigger group of people who are resentful and angry about what they see as an unfair and out of control and broken system. And I do know it's a human frailty. Resentment and anger ultimately can turn to hate. And I think if you're a mainstream politician that cares about unity in this country, it should bother you that people are on this journey.
But are you saying that racism is going to get worse if you don't push forward reforms like this?
I think my own constituents tell me all the time, people from a migrant background like myself, that they suddenly feel like maybe their own presence in their own country is now being contested because everyone thinks this whole system is broken. So I do think we've got a responsibility. It's why I describe it personally as a moral mission for me, given who and what I am and the experiences of my own family, to set this system to right, to fix the broken system, and in doing so to unite the country, but also to retain public consent for having an asylum system at all, because I do think that that is at risk if we carry on as we are.
Can we talk about the politics of it for a second? Nigel Farage has tonight said that he thinks you're auditioning to join Reform, but realistically, what you're proposing is not going to woo hardcore Reform voters, and you are going to alienate a lot of people on the left. Actually, politically, this is not smart, is it?
Well, firstly, Nigel Farage can keep his opinions to himself. He can frankly sod off. I'm not interested in anything that he has to say. And let me just say to people of all political persuasions who are watching, I'm not making a political calculation here. I'm not making an election calculation here. It is my responsibility as the Home Secretary of this country, who can see a broken system, to work out how to fix that broken system and to work out what is the right thing to do, and then to go out there and make the argument for why these changes are the right thing to do for the right reasons, because they will fix the problems that people genuinely see and genuinely are occurring, and in doing so, to retain support for having an asylum system at all. Everything else, that's politics, that's downstream of all of the main choices that I'm making. My responsibility is to deliver a system that the whole of the country can have.
You are committed to trying to persuade other European countries to back your plan to reform Article 3, which is the Article of the European Convention on Human Rights, which looks at the issue of torture and says basically if somebody's going to be sent back to a country where they're going to be really badly maltreated, that shouldn't happen. It will take years to get that reform through, won't it? So actually the leader of the Tories is right. It would be cleaner and quicker to leave the European Convention, wouldn't it?
No, I don't think that's right. And we're not going to be leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. The Prime Minister and myself have both made that very clear.
But it will take years to reform.
Well, there's a new conversation happening at the Council of Europe in relation to Article 3. We will never, ever send somebody back to their country to be tortured. That will never happen. And that's not what we're seeking to change. The second element of Article 3, which relates to inhuman or degrading treatment, that is where we've seen an expansion of that right to, prevent the removal of foreign offenders, for example, from this country because the prison cells in another country might be too small. I don't believe that's what Article 3 was ever envisaged for, and I think it's right that we start that conversation. What I would say is reform does take time. International reform, international treaties, these are long-term processes. We accept that. This is a conversation worth having with our European partners, and it's a conversation that I think has taken a new shape more recently as more countries struggle with the issues that we are seeing as well. But what the Tories cannot answer is that their proposals to rip up the European Convention on Human Rights also get you into years of discussions with international partners, because our commitment to human rights underpins many of our international agreements as well. So whichever way you look at it, we are going to be having a lot of conversations with international partners, but we believe it's important that we do so within the context of staying in the ECHR.
And finally, I've been immersed, for better or worse, in political reporting for decades. And truthfully, I've never actually witnessed the kind of unforced chaos that we saw last week. Downing Street briefings on the leadership, U-turns on the budget. What's gone wrong with your government?
Look, I think what happened in relation to those briefings at the beginning of last week were it's mortifying and it's embarrassing and it should never have happened. I think the Prime Minister has dealt with it, and I just think...
But what about the budget U-turns? Again, it's mortifying and embarrassing.
I'll address that in a minute, but I think we have to draw a line under that and move on, because we are a government, or we've been elected to deliver for the British people, and that is the first, middle and last thing that should be on our mind every single day. On the budget, I think all that, I'm a traditionalist here, so I don't believe in speculation. I think we will all find out what's in the budget.
Tell the Treasury about not believing in speculation, because they would have a lot of speculating.
26th of November, that is when we will know exactly what's in the budget. I don't think prior speculation is helpful. I think it's right for the Chancellor to set out her case, which is what she has sought to do in relation to the fiscal rules and the approach that we've taken to public spending, particularly through our first budget and particularly through the investment we've made in the National Health Service. So she's been making her arguments about her approach to the economy, but we will find out what's in the budget when she makes her statement on the 26th of November.
Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary, very good to see you. Thank you. That's it for this edition of Talking Politics. Like me, you may have been struck by some of her colourful language, particularly her colourful language about Nigel Farage. She's definitely up for, I would say, quite a lively political fight against Nigel Farage and reform. We are living through really quite an extraordinary period of politics, which is why you've got to tune in again on Wednesday when there'll be another edition of Talking Politics. See you then.